Mrs. M. Priyadarshini, ME MBA, is doing PhD, is currently working as teaching fellow in the Department of IST, Anna University, Chennai. She completed a Master's in Software Engineering from Anna University. She has about 10 years of experience in handling courses for UG and PG. She was serving as Technical Evangelist for Corporate over 4 years in Java Enterprise Technologies, Software Engineering, Databases, OOAD, and Design Patterns. She is proficient in handling IT projects as well into concept development for enterprises. She is doing a research in the area of web services security. Her other areas of interest include software engineering, OOAD, databases, enterprise technologies, and service-oriented architecture. She holds many journal publications and conference proceedings in her research area.
Welcome to lecture series in UGC Java Part 4. So, we will have a recap of what we have seen in the Part 3 session. So, we have seen what is class, what do you mean by objects, constructors, and then we have seen various scope of variables, about this keyword, and then about method overloading and so on. So, now we will have a look at what are all the contents that we are going to see for today's session. So, inheritance, polymorphism, that is particularly dynamic polymorphism, and about super keyword, about abstract class, and then a class called object. First we will see what is inheritance. So, inheritance is nothing but generalization or specialization. The class that is inherited is referred to as a superclass. The class that does the inheriting is referred to as subclass. So, now we will see what is inheritance. So, the advantage of using a programming language like Java is reusability. So, whenever we create a class, so we can create other classes by inheriting the properties and methods of the already available classes. So, for example, if I am trying to create an employee class today, I may have few variables like name, age, date of birth, address, whereas later on I may try to include a variable called phone number. So, what I can do is just I need not create a new employee class with all these variables again, all these methods again. So, I will try to inherit whatever the things that is already available and create a new inherited class. So, for example, if I have a class called employee, I can create another class called new employee with the new set of variables and methods that need to be included. So, it means that all general variables and methods could be kept as a class, and we can try or specialize new set of classes. So, each instance of a subclass includes all members of the superclass. Subclass inherit all the properties of its superclass. So, here we have a class money, and then we have class called T money. So, here money is the base class, that is your superclass, and T money is the subclass, or even you can say that as a derived class. So, extends is the keyword that is used to implement the inheritance. So, whenever I say inheritance, it means that a set of properties and method that is available in the superclass is being taken over or inherited to the subclass. So, I can access those variables and methods from my derived class or from my subclass. So, you can see that subclass cannot directly access those members of the superclass that have been declared as private. So, if you have a base class and if you have a variable that is declared as private, so then that becomes only accessible to the instance of that particular base class or the superclass. So, it means that if I have created an employee class and then I have declared the variable name as private, so I can access that particular variable only by creating the instances. Whereas if I need that particular variable to be accessed from my subclass or from my derived class, then I cannot directly access it by giving the variable name. So, in that case what I need to do is I can use some public methods. So, I can use accessor methods, so I can use get methods, I can use set methods in order to access the variables, assign some values to the variables in the base class. So, in that case I need to have a method which is a public method which could access the particular variable which is private in your base class or your superclass. So, again next is multiple inheritance is not possible in Java. So, what is multiple inheritance? So, we have two base classes and then we try to create a new class which needs the properties and methods available in the two base classes. So, that is what is multiple inheritance. So, which is not possible in Java. So, it means that we have another option called interface which could help us in doing multiple inheritance in Java. Anyway, we will see that in later on sessions, but only thing is multiple inheritance is not possible directly by extending extending in the sense by inheriting more number of classes and bringing the property to the derived class. Next is multi-level inheritance could be done in Java. So, multi-level is nothing but, so I have a base class, then I try to derive that. So, for example, employee, and then I am trying to derive a class called new employee. Again I can try to derive the new employee class with few other variables and few other methods. So, it means that multi-level inheritance is possible, whereas multiple inheritance is not possible. So, we have seen in the diagram, that is the UML representation. So, you know what is UML, Unified Modeling Language Representation, which is the representation that is used in order to design your object oriented system. So, UML is nothing but the Unified Modeling Language, a common language which is used in order to represent your classes, your objects and all your object oriented system. So, this is a representation of class and this is a representation that it is inherited. So, it means that T money inherits the money class. We have a class called money, we have a variable which does not have any access specifier. Next we have private int coin. So, we have a method called fill. Here we have two parameters, rupee and coin. So, whenever I call this fill method, so this is similar to that of constructor, I think. Yes, this dot rupee is equal to rupee. So, this dot rupee is nothing but the current object's rupee, and this variable rupee is nothing but the variable which is local to this particular method. So, and then I am assigning this dot coin to the value of coin. So, this is what is inheritance. So, class T money extends money. So, extends, I already told you that extends is the keyword which is used in order to represent the inheritance. So, extends money, and then I have a new variable or a variable which is specialized more than that of my base class, that is my super class. So, int total, and then I have a method called sum. In this method I am trying to access rupee and then the coin variable of my base class. We have a class, money class, in which we have two variables. One variable is rupee and the other variable is coin. So, we should note the difference between these two variables. So, here it is without access specifier, it means that it is of type package. So, I already told you that whenever you go in for a default access specifier, it is package. So, this variable is accessed anywhere within the package. So, again here for the class we have not mentioned it as a private or we have not mentioned it as public. So, it means that this class is accessible within the package. So, now here the variable is declared to be private. So, it means that we have clearly noted that this private variable could not be accessed directly from the subclass, that is the derived class. So, then we need some method in order to access this. So, but whereas here in this sum we are trying to directly access this rupee as well as the coin variable. Here coin variable is private, whereas the rupee variable is of type package. So, it means that your coin variable could not be accessed, whereas your rupee variable could be accessed. So, then this method, some method could not be executed. So, whenever you compile it, the visibility will not be available for accessing your coin variable, whereas your rupee variable could very well be accessed. So, that is what we have seen here. Subclass cannot directly access those members of the superclass that have been declared as private. So, then we have to introduce some method which could access that particular variable. So, this is how we try to access that particular variable and that object creation. So, here we have T money, we are creating an object of T money, that is the derived class variable. So, new T money, this object is calling fill method. So, this is base class method. So, anyway for this particular object I can access this method. You can see that this fill method is of access specifier package. So, I can very well access that from here. So, this value will be filled, whereas here we are trying to access the sum method. So, here the sum method is accessing one package access modifier value and one private value which could not be exactly used. So, now I am trying to print the total. So, this particular program whenever it is compiled, so the visibility will not be available. So, what we can do is we can try to include a method which could access that private variable and give the value to us. So, here we had made few changes, you can look into this. So, we have class money, int rupee, private, same thing. So, the same fill method, and now we have a method public int get coin return coin. So, we have to discuss about this get method. So, I have already told you accessor methods are the methods which are used in order to set and get the value from a particular variable of a particular class. So, here get coin. So, you can notice that get, this is lower case and then C is uppercase. So, whenever we create a variable in Java, it should always start with lowercase letter and the consecutive words if you have should be with uppercase. So, here since we have only one word, it starts with lowercase. Here coin, it is lowercase. I am trying to return the objects, the current objects coin value. So, here I can use coin or I can use this dot coin also, whereas here I have to classify between this coin and this dot coin. So, it means that this dot coin is current objects coin, whereas here I have only one particular value coin, I do not have any other variable being declared in this particular method. So, now this get coin method will return the coin value which is available in this particular objects. So, whenever I have a T money class, so this T money class will have the variable rupee here, it will have, it means that whenever I say extends, it means that all the variables and methods come here. So, that variable rupee will come to the derived class as well as the method fill will also come to the derived class, whereas we will not be able to access only this private int coin. So, for that we have introduced a new method public int get coin which will give us, that is which will return us the value from that particular object. So, you can see here I am trying to access this particular coin value using the method get coin, whereas here you can notice that we have directly used the coin variable, whereas instead of that we are trying to use a method here. This method is access specifier of type public. So, we can directly use this method, this will return the coin value and then I will add it with the rupee and then put it in the total. So, now this program could be run very well because we have tried to access the private variable using the public method. So, next we will discuss upon method overriding. So, what is method overriding? So, it is nothing but dynamic polymorphism. So, same method declaration, but different implementation at different levels of inheritance. So, now we will see what is dynamic polymorphism. So, already we have seen what is static polymorphism. So, if I have a class and if I have many methods in the class with different set of parameters. So, always my parameter value will be different. So, I can differentiate the methods using the parameter values that will be differentiated during the compile time. So, that is why it is said to be static polymorphism. So, it means that whenever I call that particular method, I can find out which method I am going to call during my compile time itself. Now, we will have a short break and then we will proceed with what is dynamic polymorphism, how it is different from that of the static polymorphism. So, welcome back. We were discussing about static polymorphism and difference between static polymorphism and dynamic polymorphism. So, we will continue with that. So, we will see what is dynamic polymorphism. So, here as already stated, your static polymorphism multiple form of your method definition. So, I have two methods differentiated with list of parameters and two different implementations. So, my method definition which need to be called is identified during my compile time, whereas in case of dynamic polymorphism we could only find out which objects method, whether it is base class objects method is called or derived class objects method is called. And one more thing that we need to notice, in case of static polymorphism, two methods with different set of parameters are overloaded, whereas here we have the same method, same function prototype. We do not have any difference in the parameters, we do not have any difference in the return type, we do not have any difference in the method name. So, the same method with two different implementation, but at different levels of inheritance. So, it means that in base class I have a method with one particular implementation, and in my derived class I have the same method with the same function prototype, but a different implementation. So, for example, we have already seen that in employee class I have a method called display. So, I will display all the variables that is available in my employee class. So, I have 3 variables. So, those 3 variables will be displayed, whereas if I come to my derived class I may have 1 or 2 variables, that is some specialized variables in my derived class. So, in that case those variables also need to be displayed. So, what I do, I write a new implementation for the display which will display all the variables that is available in the base class as well as in the derived class. So, now these two display methods are at two different levels of inheritance. One is at the base class level and the other one is at the derived class level. So, you can see this sample. So, public class employee, employee ID. So, I already told that E, that is it should, your variable name should start with lowercase and consecutive words with uppercase. So, you can notice that emp ID, emp name, emp address. So, E is small and then your A is uppercase. So, now I have a constructor here, 3 argument constructor, one is ID, name and then address. So, here we have not used keyword called this because the variable names are different here. So, what we pass in the parameter list is different from that of your variables that is declared, and you can notice that we have private variables here and method is public. So, this is a constructor. So, of course, it should be of type public. So, now we have a display method. Here we display ID and name of the employee. Now, we are trying to inherit this new employee class. So, public class new employee extends employee. So, I introduce a new variable mail ID. So, now public new employee. So, this is constructor of your new class. So, I have 4 variables ID, name, string and email. Super is the keyword which is used in order to access the base class or your super class constructor or super class variable. So, here we have used super, then I have given the parameters ID, name and address. So, which is my base class constructor. So, and then after that I am trying to initialize the value called mail. So, here in this case this will be executed and then this statement will get executed. So, here I have a new display method here. So, you can notice that in your base class you have a display method which displays your ID and name, whereas in your derived class you have ID, name as well as your email ID to be displayed. So, this is what is said to be method overriding. So, it means that you have the same display method in your base class and the same display method in your derived class. So, same method declaration, but different implementation at different levels of inheritance. So, this is what is dynamic polymorphism. So, we will have a look on what is super now. So, super is a keyword which is used in order to identify your superclass name. The creation and initialization of the superclass object is a prerequisite to the creation of subclass object. So, whenever we try to create a subclass object, so in that case I should see to that my superclass object is created, because we know that all the variables in your base class is going to be inherited in your superclass, is going to be inherited in your subclass or your derived class. So, first we have to initialize all the values in the base class, then we have to come to your derived class. So, the creation and initialization of the superclass object is a prerequisite to creation of the subclass object. Next is subclass does not have neither access to the private members of the superclass. So, that we have already discussed, nor access to the superclass constructor. So, it means that your superclass constructor could not be inherited, that is by default that will not be available. So, it becomes responsibility of the person who is going to write the constructor for your derived class to access the base class constructor. So, if you are not trying to access it explicitly, so implicitly the default constructor of your base class will be called, provided if you have the default constructor in your base class. Default constructor is nothing but the constructor with no arguments is said to be the default constructor. Super keyword is used to refer the superclass constructor, and it should be the first statement and the superclass overridden method. So, your super keyword is used to refer the superclass constructor and the superclass overridden methods. So, whereas your constructor should have the first statement to be the calling of your base class constructor. So, here I will discuss this with an example. So, we have public class new employee extends employee. So, here we have private string mail ID. So, already we have seen what you have in your employee class. So, here we have used a keyword called super in order to access the base class, that is your superclass constructor. So, there is a constructor with 3 arguments in your superclass, and then after that here we have the display method public void display and then super dot display. So, here I am trying to access my base class method from my derived class. So, it means that whenever I come to this display method, automatically this particular method of your base class will be called, and then I try to execute this particular statement. Super keyword is used to refer the superclass constructor and superclass overridden method. So, what is overridden method? Overridden method is nothing but the method which is available in the base class as well as in the derived class. So, we have a provision, because since it is overridden, right, you cannot call the base class method. So, it is not inherited here, because the same method has a different implementation in your derived class. So, in this case you cannot have your base class implementation being called. So, for that we use this super keyword and then we try to call the particular implementation, that is your previous implementation or your base class implementation. Next is we will move on into abstract class. So, class with one or all of the members or methods to be abstract. Abstract method does not have any implementation. Abstract class could not be instantiated. Class inheriting abstract class should provide the implementation. Subclass which implements the abstract superclass should implement all the methods, else that is also termed as abstract class. So, first we will discuss upon what is abstract class. So, abstract, as literally you know, you are not clear with the implementation. So, in some cases whenever we create a class, we will not be clear with what need to be implemented under that, and we give that particular option to the person who are going to define that particular method. So, for example, I have a particular class with the method to be an abstract method. I do not know what is the definition that at this point of time I need to write for that method. So, and then I leave that particular option of deriving that method to the person who is going to inherit that particular class. So, whenever I have a class, that particular class, even if it has one method or n number of methods with a keyword called abstract. So, then I can say that class also to be an abstract class. Next is abstract method does not have the implementation. So, it means that abstract method does not have any implementation part. So, I will have only the declaration part. So, I will give what the method, what is the parameters in that method, and then I do not write any definition for that, just I leave with the declaration part. Abstract class could not be instantiated. So, it means that since I do not have any definition for the method, I do not have any definition, just I have declared that method, what statements need to be executed under that particular method I have not defined it. So, it is not possible for me to instantiate it and call that, because I do not have any implementation for that. So, only declaration is available. So, abstract class could not be instantiated. Next is class inheriting abstract class should provide implementation. So, whenever somebody is going to inherit an abstract class, so all the abstract methods need to be implemented. You cannot leave even one single method unimplemented. In that case, what happens is again your derived class also becomes abstract, because in that also you have a method which does not have any definition. So, again that could not be inherited. So, that is what is definition of your abstract class. So, here we have abstract class shape, and then I have a two double variables dimension 1 and dimension 2, and then I have a constructor. Next is abstract a method. You can see that I have only declared the method. So, here I have another class called rectangle which inherits this shape. Now, rectangle calls the base class constructor. So, again I have the method implementation. You can see that it returns dimension 1 into dimension 2. Here I have a class called triangle which extends the shape. So, triangle has two double values as parameter, again I call the base class constructor. So, now I declare this method. You can see here return dimension 1 into dimension 2 divided by 2. It means that you have two different implementation, one for your rectangle and other for your triangle. So, two different implementations for this particular, and also in your base class you do not have any definition. So, you have only the declaration part. This is what is your base class, you have only the declaration part, whereas you have defined it when you have inherited it. When you have inherited it, you have defined what should be available as the implementation. Now, you can see that. So, we have class area calculation, so area CALC, and here shape. I have declared a variable for shape, and then I have created a rectangle object, and then I have created a triangle object. Now, this declared variable I assign an object of type rectangle here an object of type triangle, and then I am trying to access the method for area. So, now this variable shape is going to access the area method of your rectangle object. So, here it is going to call the area method of your triangle object. So, this is what your type conversion comes into picture. So, this rectangle object is being typecasted into base class object. So, here this triangle object is typecasted into your base class object. So, next we will see what is use of final keyword. So, already we have discussed what is final. So, it means a constant variable. So, it means a constant variable which could not be changed. Similarly, in case of inheritance also we can use the final keyword. So, final keyword is used to restrict a class or method being inherited. If a class is final, implicitly it declares all of its method as final too. So, whenever I declare a method to be final, so it means that nobody can inherit that particular method. So, it means the definition is clearly given and it could not be changed. It is the final, it is a constant one. Next, we will discuss upon a class called object. So here Java defines a special class called object. So this is not your normal object what you create. All other classes are subclasses of the object. Object is a superclass of all other classes, that is Java's own classes as well as user defined classes. This means that a reference variable of type object can refer to any object of any other class. So first Java defined a special class called object. So there is a class called object which is available in Java API. All other classes or whatever the classes that you create, it may be an employee class, it may be an vehicle class, it may be a person class, whatever may be the class, you create objects for that class. So this class, all these classes are subclasses of the type object. So it is also termed as cosmic class. So object is a superclass of all the other classes, that is Java's own classes as well as user defined classes. So Java's own classes is nothing but the set of classes that is available in Java API, and user defined classes, whenever a user defines a class, that also comes under a subclass of this particular object class. So whenever I have reference variable, so you think that I have created a person object, person P is equal to new person, we have already created it. So then the base class of this will be object. So any object could be typecasted into base type object. So now as a summary, seen what is inheritance, what is use of keyword called extends, dynamic polymorphism, usage of keyword called super, and then we have seen what is abstract class, and then we have also seen what is the object class. So from this we could answer for these set of questions: what is use of extends keyword? Could abstract class be instantiated? If so, why? Which class is superclass of all other classes in Java? So in your forthcoming classes we will have a detailed discussion on all the other concepts such as packages, interfaces and so on. With this we will come to the end of this session. Thank you.
Mrs. M. Priyadarshini, ME MBA, is doing PhD, is currently working as teaching